So the last few lessons, we've learned about the seasonal cycle. I want you to identify the characteristics of the 4 seasons, thinking about which plants and animals you see most often during that season. So what season is this? What plants and animals would you see during this season? What season is this? What plants and animals would you see during this season? What season is this? What plants and animals would you see most often during this season? And what season is this? Which plants and animals would you see most often during this season? Each of the 4 seasons have different characteristic temperatures and amounts of sunlight. Plants and animals are affected by the temperatures and sunlight in each season. I want you to listen carefully to today's read aloud to find out about the main topic, the life cycle of a flowering plant. All living things pass through stages from birth to adult, called a life cycle. For many living things, the cycle of life follows the 4 seasons of the year. So let's name the 4 seasons in order. For some living things, the cycle of life is short and is completed in just days, months, or a single year. For other living things, the cycle of life continues for many, many years. So some living things have longer lifespans than others. Some flies only live for a few days, but people can live to be over 100 years old. Today you will learn about the life cycle of a flowering plant. Just think about all the flowering plants you see in the parks, yards, gardens, fields, and meadows. Our world is awash with colorful, vibrant flowering plants. How do these plants grow and reproduce or make seeds for new plants? Let's find out. A flowering plant begins its life cycle as a seed. Seeds need special conditions to germinate or begin to grow. Spring provides seeds with the right conditions to grow. Therefore, the life cycle of a flowering plant begins in spring. In spring, there is more sunlight and temperatures are warmer. So why is there more sunlight and warmth in spring? If you remember, temperatures begin to increase in spring because wherever the season is occurring, that part of Earth is now facing the sun and receiving more sunlight. So seeds need just the right amount of light from the sun, nutrients from the soil, and water in order to grow. Once the seed germinates or sprouts, it grows and develops into a young plant with roots, a stem, and leaves. So roots, stem, and leaves are the 3 main parts of a young plant. The first leaves unfold to allow photosynthesis to begin. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants make their own food as well as oxygen. Plants use sunlight and water to make food in the form of glucose, a type of sugar. In the warmth of spring and summer, plants continue to grow. The young plant is called a seedling. Gradually, a plant's stem will grow taller and true leaves will emerge. So the word emerge means to become visible or able to be seen. Once the plant matures or become an adult plant, flowers appear. In order for a flowering plant to reproduce or produce seeds that will make new flowering plants, it must be pollinated. Pollination is when pollen from one flower mixes with the pollen of another flower so that the plant can make seeds. But how is pollen transferred from one place to another? In other words, how does pollination occur? Flowering plants need pollinators to help them with pollination. Pollinators are insects, birds, and other animals that are attracted to the shape, fragrance, or color of a flower. Without pollinators, most flowering plants would not produce seeds and fruit. So remember, plants need pollen from other plants in order to make seeds. Pollinators carry pollen from flower to flower. There are many types of pollinators, such as birds and small mammals, but insects are the #1 pollinators of flowering plants. The flowers of a flowering plant are designed to attract various pollinators, especially insects. The shape, fragrance, and color of the flower, as well as the sweet-tasting nectar contained within the flower itself, attract many different kinds of insects. As insects move from flower to flower, the sticky substance called pollen clings to their bodies and is transferred not only within a flower, but from flower to flower. So honeybees, bumblebees, ants, moths, beetles, and flies are just some of the insect pollinators. Honeybees are the most common pollinators. They carry out more pollination than any other insect. Some scientists think that bees are attracted to bright blue and violet color flowers, whereas butterflies like fragrant yellow, pink, red, and orange flowers. Butterflies also like wide petals so that they can settle on them while they drink the sweet nectar. Birds are important pollinators too, especially of wildflowers. For example, hummingbirds have perfectly designed beaks that can reach the nectar inside long, tubular-shaped flowers. So if you look here, this hummingbird has a tube-shaped beak. And this hummingbird has a tube-shaped beak. And it looks like this bird as well. We can't see the end of the beak, but it has a long beak as well. There are more than 2,000 different kinds of birds in the world that feed on nectar. Birds have a poor sense of smell and help to pollinate unscented flowering plants because they are attracted by the color and shape of the flowers. A variety of small mammals pollinate flowering plants. Mice, shrews, and rats, even tree-dwelling animals such as lemurs and small monkeys, can help to transfer pollen. People also help the pollination process. Often when people are working in their flower gardens, the sticky pollen is accidentally carried from flower to flower. For some plants, pollination does not just occur during the daytime. Some scented flowers attract nighttime pollinators such as bats and moths. So here the word bats means a small, furry animal with wings. The word bats also means to hit a baseball. Although 90% of flowering plants are pollinated by animals, especially insects, the wind and even water can play a part too. Pollen is carried by the wind. Flowering plants that live in water, such as lilies, can be pollinated as the water carries the pollen from one plant to another. Once pollen has been transferred and reaches the new plant, the flower produces seeds. The next part of the process is called seed dispersal. This is the process of carrying the seeds away from the parent plant so that the flowering plant life cycle can begin all over again. So most seeds are dispersed in late summer and fall. Just like pollination, there are various ways that seeds can be dispersed or spread apart in different directions. Many flowering plant seeds are carried away from the parent plant by the wind. As the wind blows, the seeds are carried up into the air. Some flowering plants have pods or capsules that explode, sending forth a burst of tiny seeds into the air. Other flowering plants drop their seeds into rivers and streams, and the seeds are carried along to their new home. Why might it be important for seeds to be dispersed or spread apart from each other? Sometimes animals carry seeds from place to place without knowing it. Some seeds contained within a protective casing can attach themselves to the fur of passing animals. This protective layer keeps the seeds safe. The protective casing will eventually fall off the animal and rest in the soil, ready to begin the life cycle process. Some seeds are contained within a fruit that animals like to eat. Animals either spit the seeds out or they eat them, and the seeds reach the earth and the animal droppings that are left behind. Once on the ground, they rest in the soil until the germination process can begin again the following spring. All of this is happening around us in spring, summer, and early autumn. The potential for new life is being created as flowering plants are pollinated and seeds are dispersed. Across the world, the life cycle of flowering plants is renewed or happens again each year. So what is the main topic of the read aloud? What is the first stage of the life cycle of a flowering plant? What happens after a seed is planted? Which one of the 4 seasons is the best time for planting seeds? And why? How do flowering plants attract pollinators? How does a hummingbird's beak help it to pollinate flowers? Besides animals, what other ways can plants be pollinated? So in the read aloud you heard, some seeds contained within a protective casing can attach themselves to the fur of passing animals. Say the word protective with me. Protective. Protective means something that is intended to shelter or keep something or someone safe. An umbrella is a protective cover or shelter from the rain. So think of some other items that are designed to be protective or provide means of protection. What's the word we've been talking about? Protective.